Okay, so video here on the Vauxhall Vivaro. This is the 1.9, it's the 2900. It's a 2003 vehicle, and we're doing the power steering pump. Sorry, we're doing the starter motor on this one today. Probably best recommendation is I'm just doing it at the driveway on some axle stands, as you'll see here. Very difficult job, by the way. I've read some people can do it in an hour to 2 hours. It certainly has taken me a lot longer than that. But anyway, the part is now out. I'm going to quickly tell you a couple of things that might help you along the way, because it's quite a difficult job. So, first off, when the starter motor is in the car, it's basically at this position. And it's worth noting because it's how hard it is to get to. On the back here, you've got two connectors for electrical cables, an 8mm and a 13mm on the back. So you'll need to be able to get to those as well. You've then got these two bolts here, and then you've got a stud that's on the engine block here that's got a nut on the end. So these are your two bolts. These are accessed from on top of the engine. This one is accessed underneath the car, and these are accessed also underneath the vehicle as well. Okay, so that's the kind of setup of the starter motor. Okay, I'm going to go to the car now. So a couple of things. As you look at your engine, what you'll probably want to do as you look at this is take out a couple of the pipes. I'll show you the pipes at the end I've taken out. I've taken out the breather pipe from here that comes up. So your breather pipe, and I've undone this breather pipe as well. And I've also taken out the air ducting that goes from here across to here, and that gives you a little bit more access into here. Now, we've also got this wiring loom here. There is a metal bracket, this bracket here, with two enormous bolts on them, actually 13mm bolts, that go underneath this wiring harness. So it's very difficult to see, but this is the wiring harness. It goes underneath that. They said you've got to take that out. I'm not quite 100% sure I needed to take it out, if I'm honest, but I did take it out because it kind of recommendation was you did. And then the two bolts you're looking for, this is your first bolt. So here's your gear selection, gear selector. The bolt is just before the gear selector here. The other bolt is on the other side of the gear selector, right over there in the corner. Now you can get to it from on top. It's probably easiest from on top, which is where I got to it from. And what I would say is it's a bit of a bugger to get anything in here, and you need so I just ended up using a 13mm socket with a long breaker bar on it. I've got a ratchet bar that I use generally, so I used this ratchet bar to basically break it and undo it, and then I used a smaller 13mm socket after that. Okay, so the starter motor itself, when you go underneath the vehicle, it's quite hard to show you from here, but when you go underneath the vehicle, it's tucked right at the back. So imagine, here's the back of the engine. The starter motor is basically, hope you can see this, it's almost down there. If you can see my hand, it's down there, all the way down here. So I'm going to point to it with my pointer here. The starter motor is basically all the way down there at the back of the engine. So it's an absolute bugger to get to. Okay, so that's the top of the engine. So the order I've done everything in is I've taken out the plate for the two wires. There's then a plate that bolts onto the kind of manifold. That's got to go on. And then you've got the wires, the actual starter motor itself, and the wires on the back of the starter motor as well. So all in all, very difficult job. And just one more thing, when the motor comes up, you have to riddle it quite a lot underneath, and then you sort of, it's basically sat in like that angle, and when it comes up, you bring it up like this, out of the engine, like that. So when you put it back in, you go back in this way, and then you twist it right into that corner. I've done it on my own, but it probably could do with a two-man job. It would certainly be helpful to have another guy at the bottom there to help riddle stuff and hold stuff into place, but you can do it on your own. I've done it all on my own. So hopefully that kind of helps you with the setup. I don't know how well the camera will show underneath, but I will just try for you. Okay, so I'm underneath. I don't know how well this is going to come out for you. So I'm underneath the engine, drive shaft, cat, and there's your starter motor in there. So really hard to get to. Here's my wires. This is for my wire. I haven't put these back on yet. I'm going to put these on in a minute. And the best thing you've got to do is on this side here, you basically put your hand up here by the pulley. You see the pulley here? You put your hand right up here, and it can go right around the back, and you can get to it. So you see my hand there, you can get to it up here. And that's what you have to do to get to the top bolts from the very top. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where it is. So when it goes out, you've got to riddle it and go up here, up that way. So anyway, I'm now going to put the electrical connectors on and then put everything back together, and I'll put this cable back on. I also undid this as well, which is this pipe, because when you're doing these bolts you need a little bit more space to get your socket in as well, because you need to be able to break that. So that's what I did here, and that's why on here I do have that extra piece there. So it's just hopefully give you an idea about why this one's undone. I'm going to put that bracket back on there now in a second. Right, okay, I hope that helps you kind of orient you with where everything is. It is a very difficult job, it's very fiddly. That'll give you an idea how you get to everything, and hopefully kind of shows you where all the parts are really. So I'll do a little bit of recording in a minute at the top when I put it back together for you. Okay, a couple of other little things then. When I'm accessing this part here, I'm going to be using a socket wrench like this, and basically you come up by that auxiliary pipe I told you about, and then you basically want to get that onto there, and your hand will then be down by the auxiliary pulley, and that gives you the ability to don't have much tension on it, basically get that done up fairly well. And then the same here with the 15mm when you get onto the 15mm. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that is what I'm going to be doing to get those two on in terms of the wiring piece, because I found that's the best way to get to it. Okay, so now what I've done, I've reconnected down the bottom. So I've done the electrical wires I just showed you. The bolts are now in for the starter motor. I'm now going to put the bracket in. So this bracket, best access from down beneath again, but two of these get access from on top when you do them, and then the other two get accessed from below. So I'm now going to put this back in, and I labelled mine up when I took it off, so I kind of knew which way round it was going to go. So it's going in this way round, basically, with the cross, so the sticking out cross towards the alternator, the indented cross towards this side of the vehicle, kind of gearbox side, and it goes all the way down, and basically this sort of sits protecting the heat, I think is probably what it does, and this is going to go right down there. So I'm going to get that back into place, and then we just basically start bolting that back in as well. Okay, so quick tip when you're putting the plate back on, so your plate, oh, it's so hard to see in these things, that is your plate right back there. Okay, so it's basically your shield for your manifold. Just want to hand down here, so it's right down there, that's your plate there. Remember to put your earth strap back onto your plate at the top. Then you've got two other bolts this side. Top one you can do a good stretch to get to, the bottom one by the exhaust, best to get to from the bottom. And then there's one which has got a nut on it, which is done from the other side of the plate, so the kind of, I'll call it the alternator side of the plate. So that's your plate. Okay, so on this side now I'm pretty well back together, except I've got to put in the electrical plate now. So just the last two bolts that I showed you earlier on, so those now get bolted under here, so you need to maneuver that back into place to put your plate back in there. Okay, so nearing the end of the job now. It's taken about an hour to put it back together. So we're going to just reconnect all the breather pipes now. So just a quick reminder, bracket here. The bolts is, first one's just here where my finger is, it's under those electrical cables, and the second one is on the other side of these electrical cables down there. Both 13mm. You need a kind of short socket. I just use a short socket on that, just this very tiny socket. And that's it. We're going to put the breather pipes back on. So I've got that one, and I took off those two as well. So I'm going to put those back on now, and then fingers crossed it actually starts. Okay, so it's going again now. I mean, look. What I'd say about that job is that was a horrible job to do for the first time. I mean, if you asked me to do it again, I'd say no, take it to a garage where you've got a ramp and you can get to it easy. Mine was stranded at home. Personally, if you've got the right tools, I think you can do it, but without a decent set and array of different size sockets, that's a very hard job. It's very fiddly. I guess now I know where all the holes are, all the bolts are, it's a lot easier. I don't know what to move out the way and not to move out the way. I could probably do it in half the time now, and maybe you could do it in 2 hours actually. I think that's probably, in fairness to another chap, I watched his video on it, he did it in 2 hours, or he said 1 to 2 hours. I think you could, maybe 2 people, yeah, you could do it, but you've got to know where all these are. I hope this video is helpful so that you now know a little bit more than I did at the start on how to find everything and what to take off. So anyway guys, if you venture onto your starter motors yourself, it can be done. You might have a few bruises on your hands, but good luck. Okay, so to gain access, this is the breather pipe, or the cooling pipe here. I'm now going to take off this screw here, so I can take this pipe off. So there's one screw up here and one here as well, and that's so I can get access to the bottom now. Okay, so next up in the way, this is the socket I want to get on that one there. I'm going to have to take this, this is the gear lever cable, I'm going to have to pop that out I think, and this really annoying bracket under the cable, you can see that round bracket there. I don't know if it's an engine pull or whatever, but it seems to be tied in by a nut, and I really need that out of the way as well so I can get the socket in, because I'm having real trouble getting a length of socket onto there. You may have the right tooling, I just don't have the right tool to get onto it. So I might take these two out to create yet more space. I'm hoping I have to take this bracket off, but anyway, that's what it looks like, just in case I have to put this back together again. Okay, so this is the extension bolt. I'm trying to get this bolt out right at the bottom here. You can see now I've managed to use this ratchet. This is the only tool I could get to fit, which basically I've got a socket on it, as you'll see down there, and it's a ratchet one. So it's a ratchet breaker bar. And I didn't have to take this clip out actually in the end. I'll put that back in a second. But you could obviously take this cable out if you need a bit more room here. It would be a bit easier with a bit more room, but anyway, you can get something in there, just about, but it's blinking hard work. Okay, so I need to take this engine mount out as well. So this is it, there's a bolt, one bolt here, which is right at the bottom, I can't even see my finger, right at the bottom, sort of the bottom of this second pipe, all the way down. And then there's the other bolt that's on the other side over here. You see that hole there on the left hand hole? That's where the other hole was. And it's sticking up this shape, so there, this bit here. I'm going to pull this out now. Move this out of the way. So it was in, so it was like that sort of angle in the car. Okay, so That's the wiring loom